maternity leave, that used to be a very, very common reason to use a contractor, a temporary employee. Anymore, it's really more about projects. Anything that has a project life cycle to it, like software development or drug development or things like that, where you need different skill sets at different points of time. Contract staffing versus direct hire. Contract staffing is like dating. Direct hire is like marriage. We need to have that flexibility and be able to be nimble and change our course of direction pretty quickly. That definitely lends itself to contract staffing.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Talent Hunters, the podcast that is distributed from HireQuest and our network of recruiting and staffing companies. I'm Ashley Smith, your host for today, currently the head of marketing here at HireQuest. And I'm thrilled to have as our guest today, Tim Osier, who is our Senior Director of Sales here at HireQuest.
Thrilled to be here, Ashley. Great to see you.
All right. First things first. Tim, you're based in Pennsylvania. Let's let the listeners know where your allegiance lies on Sundays.
Well, you are very close. I'm actually based in Wilmington, Delaware, which is just over the PA line. And I bleed Eagles green and Phillies red and Sixers black and Flyers orange. So all things Philadelphia sports teams, I am extremely committed, addicted, one might say, and gung-ho about it for sure.
It's interesting for me as someone who's always been a partner in crime, if you will, for sales partners at the various companies where I've worked. How do you feel sports or fandom can sometimes serve as an icebreaker, as a conversation starter with a potential client?
Oh, I think it's a great common denominator. It's relatively there are not a lot of minefields in it. It's not like you're talking about politics or sensitive things like that. Everybody, whether or not they themselves are a sports fan, they know people who are. I think it's a very common denominator that is a really easy way to kind of get a conversation going and start to build rapport via that sports fandom for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely for me, it's always kind of a temp check of, tell me who you pull for, or tell me, what you're into. So let's take a step back. You are someone who I've learned so much in my 2 short years of working in staffing and recruiting. What first got you into this industry? And then specifically the sales side of the industry?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to say that it was all part of a grand plan. And I knew, from an early age that I wanted to grow up and make a career out of the staffing industry. That's definitely not true. And in fact, I can say in the 30 some odd years I've been in this business, I've met less than a handful of people who said, oh yeah, I kind of knew I wanted to be a recruiter or be in the business or be in the staffing industry, from college on, right? Most people, we kind of fall into this business, right? It's funny how for an industry that is, last year did somewhere in the neighborhood of $185 billion in the US alone in staffing and recruiting, it still is kind of under the radar. People don't really think of it that much as a good career choice. You don't go to college to learn to major in recruiting or staffing or whatever it might be. So like most other people, I kind of stumbled into it. Literally, I walked into a recruiting office here in Wilmington, Delaware. It was a company by the name of Placers, which I can talk more about in a second. And they were a very well-known temp and direct hire staffing and recruiting company in Wilmington. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. I had graduated from college. I had finished my 4+ years in the Marine Corps. I moved back home to Wilmington, Delaware from Washington, D.C., where I finished college at Georgetown. And I was like, wow, what do I do now? What's next? And they placed me in my first job. It was a business-to-business
by the way,
sales role.
did you say their name was Placers?
Placers, yes.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep going, sir.
That's exactly what they did. And so they indeed placed me on a perm job, selling computers. At the time, it was business-to-business sales. It was excellent sales training. It was like kind of boot camp for salespeople. It was really hardcore, old school cold calling via the phone, via knocking on doors, all those techniques that you have to use in a lot of other types of sales roles. It really trained me up on that right from the beginning. So it was a great experience early on. We used to joke that, yes, this is pretty hardcore sales, but hey, at least we're not selling copiers, right? It could be worse. So, and no offense to all you copier salespeople out there, I have huge respect for you, I swear. But it was a really good learning experience, and I did that for about 3 years. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty good, but there must be something else out there. And I went back to Placers. I said, hey, remember me? You placed me a couple of years ago. The guarantee's over. You don't have to worry about me leaving anymore. But what else you got? And at that time, they were looking to hire an internal salesperson to sell their staffing and recruiting services, to work for Placers directly. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about that. I didn't really think about that. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, just, talk to our owner for an hour and, get a feel for what we're looking for. And after that, we can decide, kind of what direction we should go in. The owner of the company was a guy named Alan Burkhart, very much a visionary in our industry. If you've been around long enough, you've probably heard his name. He was a really, really forward thinker. And, heck, I learned as much in that 6 years with him as I probably have learned in the 20 some odd years since. But he spoke to me for like 4 hours, not an hour, and brainwashed me and indoctrinated me on how great this industry is. I mean, we kind of, I don't want to make light of it at all, because it is a really great business. Because, when you get right down to it, we are here to help people with an incredibly important decision. What is your career going to be? What's your next job going to be? Right? That's one of the 3 biggest things you have to decide in your life, between your marriage and where you're going to live and what you're going to do. And then on the client side, you're helping clients find good people. And what is more important and has a bigger impact on the ultimate success of a company than the quality of the people that are working there. So you get to work both sides and help people and help the companies and feel really good about doing that. So I love it.
I'm curious, 30 years later, what did Alan say in that 4-hour conversation? Because it did resonate with you.
Yeah, we started talking about what I was just speaking about there, about the fact that we really do have a big impact on people and on companies, and how we can, get exposure to different industries, different types of jobs, different levels of employees that we're working with. I mean, I've placed everybody from, warehouse workers all the way up to C-suite people. It really kind of, I think he kind of preyed upon the social services side of it. I wanted to help people, but I wanted to make money doing it too. And you were able to really satisfy both of those wants in one job.
It's interesting. I think you bring up an excellent point in that I do think a lot of people aren't aware of just the impact, both here in the States as well as globally, that staffing and recruiting have, both on the economy, but then very much scaled down to a one-to-one basis. It is one of the 3 biggest decisions that you make in life as far as where you're going to work. I think that's an incredible insight into why.
It really does. It's fantastic. It's a really great and important part of the job. And I think because of that, building rapport and trust is super, super important in our industry, particularly. Like, buying a car, you want to trust the salesperson, but you can kind of make that decision on your own. And if you buy the wrong car, okay, in 3 years you can sell it. Well, you definitely want both the client and the candidate to know that, we are looking out for them. We do have their best interests at heart. We want to make sure, both for personal and professional reasons, that we're making a good match and not set somebody up to fail and not put somebody in a company that they're not suited for. So I think that trust and rapport building, it's important in any sales role for sure. It's super important when hey, let's face it, people are our product. We are in fact selling people in a certain way. We're selling the services to find them, but I really have to make sure that you understand the client needs and the candidate motivations to make that match work.
So you're starting to get into some of your day-to-day. You are a man who wears multiple hats here within HireQuest and MRI Network. And we want to kind of cover broadly at first, just kind of those three areas. And then I want to get into the specifics of the benefits of each one. So can you talk very high level in talking about franchise sales, contract staffing, and then our HireQuest Global Recruiting Division, all of which you oversee?
Sure, I'd love to. And, I'm going to start with the contract staffing side. I have to admit, it's probably the nearest and dearest to my heart. I'm not a parent, but if you are, you don't say you've got a favorite child, right? You love them all equally and they're all great, but, maybe deep down there's one that, might, if you had to pick one, no. So contract staffing, I love it. It's really where I cut my teeth in the business. It's how I got my start. It's what I did for the first, 15 or 20 years. Worked with a lot of the biggest staffing companies in the industry at Deco and Manpower and Randstad. And, I love the contract staffing part of the business. It's fast. I like to say it's for people with short attention spans like me. Everything happens in a hurry, right? Which is a great part of it. And, you really do have an immediate impact. I mean, we can take a job order or rec on a Monday and have somebody in front of a client on a Wednesday and starting, a week later. So it's a very, very fast sales cycle.
So for someone listening who maybe is like, what is contract staffing?
Sure.
Like how is that different than maybe?
Yeah. And I use the term contract staffing. A lot of people call it temp staffing. It's pretty much the same thing. Consulting, very similar to it. But in general, contract staffing means the client needs work to be done, but they don't want to hire that person on a direct basis. They don't want to hire a direct employee. So they come to us and say, hey, we need somebody to help us with this SAP implementation. Can you find us an IT professional to help us with this for 6 months or a year or an indefinite period of time? So it's really contract staffing in general means that we are placing people to work at the client, but they are our employees. We pay, we bill. They're not the employees of the client themselves. They're employees of HireQuest, right?
Would it be fair to say, I feel like a trend word right now some people use in describing that is the fractional employee, or is it slightly different?
That's a fraction of it. Yes, that is part of it. Right? That is one little small sliver of it. I mean, you can look even, if you want to look really big picture, you can talk about gig economy. I'm sure you're familiar with that term, right? That includes independent contractors, and anybody from an Uber driver to a creative person, that's all under the gig economy umbrella. And then so contingent workers, contract workers, temp workers are a segment of that gig economy overall.
And all of the contract staffing placements you and your team are leading are, for the most part, handled by our MRI Network and Snelling divisions. Is it mostly exclusive to MRI Network? Mainly
MRI and Snelling. Yeah, we do work with Snelling offices on some of our global accounts that use contractors. Not so much on the HireQuest Direct side. That's really covered more by Matt Wilkerson and the national accounts team, does more direct selling with them and bringing business that directly impacts the HireQuest Direct offices. But Snelling and MRI on the contract staffing side, and then MRI in particular on the direct hire side, which is really what our global accounts group is about, aided by my fantastic colleague, Ashley Mancini. For global accounts, I've got three things really that I'm responsible for. Contract staffing, which is really a lot of that is legacy MRI business, high level contractors, very professional level. We do very little light industrial or clerical or admin type business. It's almost all IT, accounting and finance, healthcare, again, pretty high level positions. Our average salary in the contract staffing side on MRI is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $65 an hour. So about $130,000 a year. So really the people we place as contractors through MRI are very similar to the people we're placing as perm at MRI too. It's just the client wants to engage with them in a different methodology, right? So for whatever reason, maybe it's project driven, maybe it's contract to hire.
Right.
There could be a number of different reasons why they want to bring on a contractor as opposed to hiring a direct hire person, but the skill levels are very similar.
I know one of the benefits you shared with me is I've been learning this for a prospective client out there who maybe has not used a contract staffing partner. It does give you that trial opportunity with a prospective hire and just see if it's a good fit, but also to fill a need if somebody's out for maternity or paternity leave.
Yeah, that type of short term, you hit the nail on the head. The maternity leave, that used to be a very, very common reason to use a contractor, a temporary employee, right? And that still is an important one. But anymore, it's really more about projects. Anything that has a project life cycle to it, like software development or drug development or things like that, where you need different skill sets at different points of time along the path to completion, that lends itself to contract staffing. Anything with high seasonality lends itself to contract staffing. Logistics companies, for example, they have to hire hundreds of thousands of people towards the end of the year to handle, holiday shipping and things like that. They don't need them year round. So as I learned and was trained early on, hey, we go out to our clients and say, yeah, you should hire your direct hire people for your baseline business. And to handle the peaks and valleys of that business, bring on contractors and release contractors as needed. I use an analogy all the time, and Ashley and my other great colleague, Trisha Noche, can attest to this. I've said it a bunch of times. Contract staffing versus direct hire. Contract staffing is like dating. Direct hire is like marriage. It's a lot easier to break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend than it is to get a divorce. So if there's any type of seasonality or not sure how long you're going to need this person for, maybe you better date him first before you decide to.
I love that analogy. And it's a great segue. You talked about it a little bit. Let's talk about global recruiting and that division, and specifically as that is more direct hire roles and allows you guys to serve as a point of entry, if you will, for the entire MRI network team and 200 plus franchises.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm really, really excited and happy with the development of the of our global accounts team. Really, we set out to try to kind of mirror what HireQuest has done on the national account side. And kudos to Matt Wilkerson and his team. They're really good at looking at finding new national account business that is serviced by the HireQuest direct offices. That is typically straight temp. In general, lower level temp staffing, but not strictly. But for the most part, that's what it is.
On demand.
On demand, right? We need dip up not a lot of it's day labor, but it's on demand. We need 50 people tomorrow, or 5 people a day from 2 days from now, whatever it might be. That's the kind of the national accounts model. That's the bulk of that business. So the great thing about that was here we have a corporate group that is going out and bringing business to our franchisees. What better value proposition is there than that? We're going to bring business to you, Mr. Franchise, and we're going to help you get your feet on the ground and help you make a good living and help you get established by going out and looking for business that we will bring to you that you can service, right? So Rick Hermans and Dave Gerster are like, yeah, that's working great. It really provides what we call stickiness to our franchisees. It makes them want to stay. Let's try to mirror that and model that on the MRI side too. So global accounts is really about us going out and selling on behalf of our MRI franchisees and looking for new direct hire clients that we then bring that business to the franchise based upon the industry and the discipline and sometimes the geography, and bring that to the appropriate franchise. We go through we get the contract signed, the fee agreement, we do all that, front office stuff, and then we bring it to the right franchise and say, hey, we're going to make this introduction. We'd like to introduce you to ABC, company that needs to hire an HR business partner in Germany, and we're going to have an intake call with the hiring manager there and let you work on that directly and source that person. And
it just seems like if you're a hiring manager at one of, a variety of industries, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, finance, using you and your team in the global recruiting side, it allows them to have white glove service, a single point of entry to our many experts across the network of offices.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we say. We'd like to say that we can be a one-stop shop for our end clients, whether they're looking to hire, the aforementioned, labor on demand people on a temporary basis, or you need to fill a C-suite role in a direct hire position. There's a good chance that we have an office in the network, whether it's MRI or Snelling or HireQuest Direct, who has that expertise, who regularly places people in those types of roles. So yeah, we can make it easy for those hiring managers and even for our HR partners within those end clients too. That's one of the things that Alan Burkhart taught me very early on was, and I hope I'm not offending any HR experts out there, but recruiting is not really a core competency of HR, right? They have to worry about benefits and compensation and all the stuff that goes hand in hand, salary banding and et cetera on the HR side. Core recruiting is our core competency. That's all we do. That's what we wake up every morning thinking about. So, it wasn't that long ago that we kind of had an adversarial relationship with internal HR. That's really gone away. They see us as a partner too. They know that we're really trying to help them and make them look good to their end client too. So I feel like the partnering aspect with internal HR has definitely gotten a lot better, and it was a lot more common than what used to be. Like, HR didn't want to tell us anything because, oh my gosh, we're competing against them. Not really. We're all really trying to get to the same end goal and just using multiple resources to do it.
And thinking about both of those two divisions, and we'll get to your third responsibility in a second. And, I think one of the beauty and the benefits of you leading this team for us here at HireQuest is your longevity and knowledge in the industry. 2025, interesting year so far. I think when you think about staffing and recruiting, what are things, or maybe one or two things you're observing right now that are perhaps changing or perhaps impacting the industry that a prospective client might be curious to understand and learn?
Sure. I mean, I broadly speaking, I think it's fair to say that there's more uncertainty in the world today than there was 5 or 10 or 15 years ago, right? More volatility. And, that lends itself to contract staffing in general, where there's uncertainty or where you need to be really flexible because you're not sure tomorrow whether there's going to be tariffs or there won't be, or all that stuff that makes high level business decision makers nervous because they're like, how do we plan for this? How do we count on this? How do we make a 6 to 12 to 18 month plan, not knowing what's around the corner? So we need to have that flexibility and keep that, be able to be nimble and change our course of direction pretty quickly. So that's that definitely lends itself to contract staffing. Having said that, I would say that in general, clients are taking longer to make decisions about making hiring decisions. It's still hard to find a good candidate for the right job, right? You think, oh my gosh, with there should be a surplus of skilled, quality candidates out there. Not really, right? So it still is, we have to do a lot of searching, make a lot of calls, and a lot of connections to find exactly the right person for who our end clients are looking for. But our end clients, due to that aforementioned uncertainty, they're not always as quick to make the decision. And as we all know, time kills all deals, right? So if they don't make that decision quickly, there's a pretty good chance that the candidate they were interested in is going to move on and look for something else, right?
Right.
So yeah.
I had a conversation yesterday with one of our franchise owners, and exact observation that you're making about the industry is that there are some clients right now dragging their feet on hiring decisions. And it's kind of my favorite phrase, fish or cut bait. And that, that candidate, that impact fish, if you will, they're swimming right on up to the next dock and getting lured in by the next company. So
you're exactly right. That's a frustrating thing sometimes where, we are really good at, we have an in-depth intake call with our end client. And that's really where we talk about the specifics of the job and what are the like to haves and the must haves, and, what companies should we look at or stay away from. And, tell me about the ideal candidate that you absolutely have to hear about. And we take incredibly good detailed notes, and that kind of guides us in our recruiting process. So a lot of times we're going to find an outstanding person and send them right away. The very first person we send might be the right guy for the job, but the client's like, well, should I see 5 or 10 more people before I make a call here? I feel like give me some more choices. Okay, you want to see some C people too? All right. Send them over also.
And that's where I think some prospective clients who maybe historically haven't worked with a recruiting firm or a staffing partner, they're hesitant on that fee structure. And yet when you look at the financial breakdown, it costs them more money to make bad hires in the long run. Absolutely. Of 18 to 24 or 36 months than to pay that fee up front and get that quality candidate. That's something I think it's such a distinguishing attribute of why you would want to. All right, I want to cover your third area really fast.
Let me just say one more thing about our global accounts team. It's not just called global accounts. It really is a global perspective. We are working on recs right now in Sfax, Tunisia, in Mougères, France, in I can't remember the name of the city in Germany where we're working right now, let alone our domestic positions where we're Turks and Caicos. We've got open assignments for right now where we have made placements with these companies before. So we are really hopping the globe and engaging both our domestic and international offices to bring their expertise and capabilities. And it really is super exciting.
It speaks to the bench strength of the entire MRI network team that powers the global recruiting team across that footprint that you just talked about.
Some of the positions that we fill, I'm even flabbergasted, but we have already filled one, and we've got a couple more that we're working on right now for a water treatment engineer, desalination engineer to go to work in Turks and Caicos for their desalination company there. Yeah, we've got people that do that have found those people before and know where to go and look.
And by the way, living in Turks and Caicos, not horrible, by the way.
Well, it's a nice place to visit, but I'm not sure, you still got to work there, right? So I'm sure it's pretty. And I've been there before on vacation, but, working there versus visiting for a vacation, a little bit different.
So obviously, for, some folks might not realize MRI Network was acquired by HireQuest about 2.5, 3 years ago, came into the larger HireQuest family. You and your team now oversee franchise sales across the various brands. Talk about, franchising from a owner's perspective, kind of who would want to do that? If somebody's out there considering this is the time I want to become my own boss,
Yeah,
What is
happy
owning a
to. So
franchise
I think
about?
one thing important to point out for anybody who might not know, HireQuest is a pure franchise organization. All of our offices are franchise. We're not part company owned and part franchise, and you have to worry about, which side is, who's loyal to what, are the franchisees getting the same attention and as the company owned offices do. No, we are a pure franchise. And I'll say, I'm not saying this just because he might be watching this at some point, but Rick Herman's, he really is motivated he's all about helping our franchises grow and make money and become, independent business people, in that they can control their own destiny and have something to pass on to future generations and really build an ongoing business, entity at that franchise level. So it's fantastic. It really is. I would say he's like that servant leader type thing, right? Where he's really trying to.
Well, what I've always appreciated is he speaks from experience, in that he was a franchisee and really started, he's definitely somebody that pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And I think that experience hands-on empowers him in talking with our current
For sure.
franchisees.
They can tell that he's genuine. They can sense that, absolutely, that he has walked a mile in their shoes, for sure.
Who in your mind is an ideal staffing or recruiting franchise owner? And I say that realizing that it takes all types. I know just from our owners that I've met over the 2 years, there's a variety of backgrounds and personalities. But from your perspective, who's that target person you and your team in franchise sales are considering?
Well, I will answer that, but you are right. One of the beauties of our model is that it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all, or you have to be from this particular background to be successful, because, we have some offices with 50 plus employees that do phenomenally well. And that franchise owner is used to managing large teams of people and has multiple people reporting up under him, and, might be in a lot of different business lines in different industries and doing both direct hire and contract and, working in automotive and chemical and a whole bunch of different industries. That's not uncommon. On the other hand, we have a lot of super successful owners that are one-man bands that really just work the desk themselves, that go out and find the business and fill the business and make a really good living doing it and become very, very much experts within their particular niche. So I'll say in general, what the commonalities of the successful franchise owners that I've seen are, you have to be inquisitive. You have to have that, you want to know more about people and companies, right? Because you really need to know a company from the inside out and up and down, and the candidate too, their motivations, to be able to make that good match. So somebody who is always asking that one more question, for somebody my age, you might remember Columbo, right? The famous detective. Oh, just one more thing. Yeah, that's what we need to be like, right? Because that will help us find the right person for the client, find the right client for the candidate, and really drive that. It's, it is a sales role, right? So you have to be comfortable with that sales attitude. You have to be hungry. You have to be willing to make that one more call, or knock on one more door, or, send one more email. You have to have drive, and it has to come pretty much internally, because, hey, there are times where you're walking into your office by yourself, turning on the lights and, powering up your computer, and like, oh man, here's my list of 50 people I need to call today. And can somebody, help get me going here? No, you gotta bring that from your own, your own heart and your own mind. So that is super important. So that sales mentality, wanting to help people, like I said, being inquisitive about what their motivations are and why they're looking, or why they might be open to hearing about something. It's all super important. I
think those are excellent descriptors, and why we actually, I served up your team a lead that we got just before I logged on here for someone looking to get more information on franchising. And I think sometimes, given where, there's a lot of change right now happening in more of a traditional corporate environments right now. And I do think different people at different stages in their careers are exploring that opportunity to become their own boss. I
want to give a shout out. Patrick Rosmus is the guy who leads the franchise sales team for me. He's a very experienced franchise salesperson. Has been in the industry for a long time. But you just mentioned, we have found that a lot of our franchise owners who are really successful, come from a certain industry and have, maybe hit a certain glass ceiling or a certain level, or they might be traveling all the time and then thinking, well, I'd like to have a little bit more stability in my life and be in control of my own destiny more. Or they might have seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions and layoffs and comings and goings and wow, that could happen to me at some point. I want to be the one to decide what I'm doing and where and when. And so those people, are really good natural franchise prospects, because really when you get right down to it, what we do is we give our franchisees a framework of success. We have, been building on this for 50 plus years. We know what works. We know what doesn't. We know the key competencies and key things you need to focus on as a business owner. And we'll give you that kind of blueprint, and then it's up to you to follow that or not, and how hard you work it. But, we definitely lay it out, give you the map, give you the tools. And oh, by the way, you've got this network of, 500 other offices of people that have been there and done it, who are extremely generous and giving about, here's what's worked for me in the past, or, oh my gosh, don't make the same mistake I did. Or, let's talk, let's have an informal conversation over a hamburger and a beer, or a more formal one as part of an owner to owner group. They are really, really giving and really want to see their peers succeed.
I think you just hit on, to me, that sense of camaraderie and a rising tide lifts all boats mantra is very well felt and received across all of our brands. I'd be remiss, so we're gonna wrap things up here. If you had 1 minute with a hiring manager at a prospective client who's not worked with any of our brands, why should they consider reaching out to talk to you and your team about contract staffing or the global recruiting side of the business? As the marketer, I don't want you to rattle off any more of those other companies, but what is our distinguishing assets for them to consider us in an RFP or consider us as a call?
Yeah, I would say it's our global footprint, our breadth of experience. Again, whether they're looking for somebody to run a machine at a CNC machine on a shop floor, or make C-level decisions in the C-suite. We've got an office that it's likely that they have placed people like that before, that they have worked in that industry, that they know where to go and find the passive candidate, the candidate that's not out there looking for his or her next assignment or job, but might be pretty happy where they are right now, but is open to hearing about what other opportunities there are. So we basically make it very easy for our clients to work with, right? Because
I think it's the expertise and the ease in which when folks work with you and your team is perfect.
Yeah, especially on the global recruiting side. Ashley and I will figure out, we're going to listen to what you have to say and what you're looking for, Mr. Client, and then we'll figure out who is best equipped within our company to find that person for you. We'll make that fit, make that match, and 99 times out of 100, we're going to be successful doing it. So, it's really exciting.
First and foremost, thank you for joining Talent Hunters. This has been a fun discussion, and I would say to anyone listening, if you are exploring hiring needs, visit hirequest.com or mrinetwork.com as two key easy ways to get in touch with Tim and his teams.
Yeah,
And,
many paths to get here. Once you're here, we'll figure out the right place to send you from there. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining. Like, subscribe, and share with someone who you think might be exploring some new hiring decisions.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Obviously, I'm passionate about this industry. I really believe in it and the benefits that obviously it's given me and gives to our clients and our candidates. And I'd be remiss if I didn't end with a go Birds.